Thank you for finding the NSE podcast on YouTube. To find links for our online hospitality security training, check out the video description below. Enjoy the Nightlife Security Podcast.
Hey, this is Ron Jeremy. You're listening to Nightclub Security Podcast. Great choice, great choice.
Welcome to the Nightclub Security Podcast, a professional resource for the nightclub security industry. Whether you're a nightclub bouncer, guard, owner, or operator, this is the podcast for you. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to Nightclub Security Podcast. This is your host, Manny Marquez. I'm here with nightclub industry expert Robert C. Smith. Robert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, buddy.
And we are coming to you live from the Gaslamp Marriott here in downtown San Diego. It is a sunny, crisp day in San Diego.
Going to have a high of about 65 to 70.
Oh, that's too bad for us. And the rest of the country is shivering, snowed in, iced up. And we're looking outside the window to a nice sunny day overlooking Petco Park.
Home of the Padres.
So we have a nice little view here in our makeshift studio. We're in the middle of a California PSO training session that we're finishing up today. So we just got here early in the morning to record. And before we get started with the
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
How about those Chargers?
Chargers beat my Broncos. That is true.
Last night.
That was kind of...
in the cold.
Yeah. Manning kind of looked like he... I don't know.
You saw it, too. He just looks like he's older, and these kind of games get to him.
We're still 11-3, though.
All right. Go Chargers. Go Bolts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little feather cap for the season.
I just threw it out there because yesterday was my birthday, and Philip said he would win for me on my birthday, so thanks, Philip.
Yeah, he calls you and lets you know?
Yeah.
Phyllis?
Yeah, I told him, hey, make sure you wear the bolo again because that's your good luck piece.
I think every game that I've actually been able to actually sit down and watch, they've lost. So I'm not going to watch.
Keep watching, brother.
I'm going to be like the Coors Light commercial with the guys.
Downstairs?
Goes downstairs. Is it Coors Light or Bud Light?
Bud Light.
Yeah, he goes downstairs. I'll just stay in the basement so the Broncos can finish out the season.
# Bud Light. Love me some Bud Light.
So before we actually jump into today's show, I wanted to just do a couple of shout-outs. Some people that connected with us. Again, I'm really excited about the response we've been getting on our podcast. The people coming in and give us some feedback, some comments. My first shout-out goes out to Robert Simmons. He's the director of research at Talent Served. They're basically a recruiting company. But he found our podcast through LinkedIn and had some nice things to say about it. So, Robert, thank you for chiming in. We appreciate the feedback. And if there's anything on the HR recruiting side topic that you'd like to hear about in regards to nightclub security, we'd love to hear from you. I also like to give a shout out to the Gaslamp Marriott. Good friend Sean Maddox, the food and beverage director here, and his team have been kind enough to allow us to come in and use their facility for the week. They do a great job here. It's a fantastic hotel. It's close to all the activity of the Gaslamp.
Their bar, their 22nd floor rooftop bar, the highest bar in Southern California, rooftop bar, the altitude, overlooks Petco Park. You can come on a Sunday day game, a Tuesday night game, look right into the stadium to see the Padres playing. A great atmosphere.
Yeah, and it's got a great view of the Coronado Bridge. You can see Coronado from the rooftop. It's just a neat place. If you're ever in San Diego visiting, it's just a good vantage point to take a look at the city, and you get some great views from up there.
And for those of you that have listened to our podcast or been at one of my speaking sessions when we talk about the term and the name bouncer, this is the facility, and Sean is the guy, from my knowledge, that coined the phrase for the beverage ambassadors. Instead of calling them hosts or security or guards or bouncers, they call their guys upstairs on their 22nd floor at altitude beverage ambassadors.
Yeah, it's a little softer. It's a nice little title to soften the...
But it's funny. The guys embrace it. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Other associates know it, and it's not a sticking point at all for anybody.
And they've been a long-time client of ours as well, and they do a great job here. So, again, if you have a chance, Gaslamp Marriott, that's right on the corner of 6th and K.
Let me mention one too, for Thomas Proctor out of Pennsylvania. In a, I guess it's not real small looking at the map. Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania.
Say that again.
I don't want to. I don't want to offend Thomas. Tunkhannock. It's northeast of Scranton.
It's got to be Indian for something.
Yeah, I'm sure it means small town with a funky name. But Thomas listens and has been listening for a while. Send us a note thanking us for some of the information. We're doing some work, Thomas. We're looking into your request on a podcast with information about armed in-house guards or armed bouncers and their use and pro, con, good, bad kind of thing. So we're looking into that, see what we can do for you. Thanks.
Yeah, it's always good to hear. And if you're out there and if you have a question, we always like to encourage you guys to chime in. You can do that actually on our podcast page from our website, nightclubsecurity.com. You can also comment on iTunes. You can find us on iTunes if you search Nightclub Security. And again, as we said last time, if you have a friend or a coworker or somebody else who would benefit from this podcast, we'd really like to grow this community. And part of that is we need your help to get the word out. So anything you can do to lead people to this podcast, we'd really appreciate it.
I tweeted something last night, West Coast time, probably 8 o'clock. And it's one of my catchphrases that I've used for a long time. When there's no reason to hurry, don't hurry. And the follow-up to that was many, many incidents have like fuel on their fire when you hurry and rush, and guards can sometimes rush into things that could have been handled in a slower, calmer, take your time mode. The tweet got retweeted by a Fairfax County police officer, and then I got an email from someone that I don't even know saying, hey, that's good information. I just found your website through this retweet, and I listened to half of your podcast, and I'm going to start listening.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I wish I had the names. I don't have them with me. But I know that the retweet was by an academy instructor out there, Rick Beislein. Rick's been a longtime friend of ours on the East Coast, helping us in D.C. But that retweet got an email from somebody that I don't know telling us they're now a listener and a follower. So at Bouncer Coach for your Twitter follow.
Nice. Those are it's always neat to see how the word spreads. I actually was taking a look at the downloads on for the podcast. We actually got one from China, which was interesting, and one from Belgium.
You don't think that's why the president of China cut off his uncle's head, do you?
Oh, I didn't even know that happened.
Yeah, he had him executed for treason.
All right. Well, you got to do what you got to do. Running a country, you just don't have time for that. That's a little harsh, and sounds like I'm very ignorant to world activities.
Everybody's got an uncle. Do you want to chop his head off?
Yeah, but you just don't do it. Any news?
You know what? Would you have ever thought? And I can't find anyone that put this out there before I did, but I saw the news article come across the very day it occurred about the Pope being a bouncer in Buenos Aires back in the day. Can you imagine the Pope doing that interview? Oh, back in the day, I was a bouncer.
But I wonder, was it that experience that led him down the road to say, one day I want to be Pope?
To redeem people and do that?
Maybe he's like, he felt really bad because he only let the pretty girls in, and this is his redemption.
Well, it's funny, in this class that we're given now, and we're on day 3 of our 3-day state licensing class, we've got 3 different people in here that have all said, this is just a part-time gig, and they've been doing it for 3 to 4 years.
I've heard guys say, this is my part-time gig, and they've been doing it for 10 years.
Well, and I'm sure that's what happened with the Pope. He's doing his studies, and I don't know. I read it, but it didn't really get into the deep part of that news story. But imagine here's this guy working the door of some Argentinian bar. He's letting people in. He's kicking people out. He's doing what he does. But now he can, to me, it's pretty dramatic that now he can draw as his climbing up the chain within the Catholic ministry, and he can pull back on what he did at the door and tell some great stories to some oddball people and trying to get them to turn around.
I wonder if he's got any life lesson stories that came from that experience of being.
How could he not? How could he not? And pull on some of that stuff to where he is now. Anytime you're in a position like that, you're going to have those type of stories.
Well, and if you think about it, if you're a bouncer and you're patient, you're almost a saint. You're close to holiness.
And now it relates to a lot of other things that I don't even want to get into, but doing the job of a bouncer is not just a bouncer. You're not just the doorkeeper. You're not just the guy that mops up the bathroom throw up. You do everything, and you have to deal with everyone. Come on, Pope Francis, He does the same stuff.
And he was also announced to be Times Man of the Year.
Oh, did they announce that?
Yeah.
All right, good for him. I'm glad it wasn't
So a former bouncer became Pope, became Times Man of the Year.
beat out.
You too, listening as a bouncer, you can achieve greatness. You are.
I don't know that I want Thomas Proctor or any of other listeners to become the Pope, but nice job.
They might not even be Catholic, so they might not have a chance. But there's other noble professions they can get into. That news story actually got a lot of press.
It's still on there on one of my hit lists, and it's got so much coverage that people were so surprised. And I put it out there early on Facebook. If the Pope can be started as a bouncer, there's hope for all bouncers.
Absolutely. And it actually, I don't remember the jokes, but I remember hearing it on Jimmy Fallon, and Jay Leno had all comments about it. So
that's our news story.
It's nothing too heavy, nothing too exciting, but
What's this week's show?
This week's show is going to be video cameras in regards to nightclub security, and we're just going to
We get a lot of requests, a lot of talking in the classes as we travel. People asking us about, hey, I've got this. Should I do that? I don't have any. Should I do that? I want to remove them. Should I do this? And that's what I think we're going to devote this show to.
Yeah, and we get a lot of clients who think about getting them, don't know what the answer is. So we're going to have to help to clarify that and lay down what we think about video cameras, how they help, how they might not help, how you should use them.
And we're not going to recommend a brand. We're not going to recommend a company, but we're not going to recommend a name. We're going to tell you what we feel about where, how, the numbers, length, time, recording, use, providing feeds, IP addresses, and such like that.
All right, so why don't we take a short break? When we come back, we'll dive into today's topic. So stick with us, and we'll be right back. Thank you for joining us on our weekly podcast. Please like us on Facebook at Nightclub Security Consultants. All right, and welcome back. We're going to talk about video cameras today. I know that there's kind of two sides. People either proponents or they're opposed to the actual use of cameras within a nightclub or bar environment. I know early in my career, Robert, that was still in a stage where these were a fairly expensive investment for a company. As of late, it's relatively inexpensive. It's still a good dollar amount, but it's a lot more accessible for smaller venues, ones that are maybe in the past that weren't able to have an installation in.
Well, and unfortunately, they are getting more expensive. I looked at the Costco website. Shout out to Costco.
So wait, you're saying they're going back up?
No, they're staying low.
Oh,
in fact, they're going so low that, once again, and I said this at a prior podcast, this industry is driven by two things, money and regulations. So as an operator, if I showed you a $2,000 16 camera DVR in the box with wires ready to go for $2,000, you might think, wow, $2,000, and it's all ready to go, and all the cameras are there, all the wires are there, the DVR's there. All I got to do is install it. I can do that. I can have Jimmy, my maintenance guy, install that.
Yeah, they're fairly easy for an install. I mean, there's a little bit, depends on what sort of cosmetic approach you want to take.
But the problem is they are so inexpensive now that operators are thinking they can do it themselves. You're not an expert. You're not a camera expert, whether it's infrared, pan tilt, zoom, nighttime, daytime, color, black, white, locations, sun variables, irises on the camera, changing the lighting. That's not your forte. So you put a camera up and think it's good.
So the actual installs can be fairly easy, but then the question comes is all the other things, all the other factors and variables that play into.
Do you remember the camera at Bondi?
Which one?
The one above the door that needed the 20-foot ladder, and although it was installed by a professional company, it had to be fixed. When we did that before the venue opened, it had to be fixed 7 different times, climbing up that ladder, readjusting the iris, moving its location because of the sun and the bounce off the floor. I think the expert, once they installed that, wasn't really a nightclub bar expert, and didn't understand all the nuances of what was going to go on when that camera was going to be used.
Because there is a lot of subtleties as far as, time of day that their recording's taking place, the angle, I guess the vantage point that should be considered rather than just, a straightforward install. So you might, the idea of a self-install, I guess, is good on one side because it's inexpensive, and I guess something is better than nothing. But the other side of that is you should consider all the factors that go into the quality of the picture. And
Well, let me ask you, what every operator, the worst thing that can happen in your bar or club, typically a shooting and someone dies, a stabbing and someone dies. Can you imagine doing your own install and your cameras are up there and you catch it, you think but they're out of focus. The iris isn't set right. It's not correct. And that's where the cost is low. Self-installs are great, but get an expert company in there to do it for you. And you may have an employee that can do it to some level, but be careful because when you need them, you need them.
In my experience has been it takes a little bit of time to work through the kinks. It's just like anything else that you launch, any sort of program as an operator that you launch. It takes a little bit of time to go through the process to fix the problems. So it's not something that's immediate and you can just install and you're on your way and up and running. Make sure that you're taking a look at the quality of the picture and are you getting the things that you want to get. Robert, you've been working with clients and their video systems for quite a while now. The question comes up, I guess, with operators is some operators don't like to have video cameras because they don't like the idea of recording activities within their walls because they think it's going to make them more liable. Can you comment on that?
And it can. I mean, let's be very honest. Let me ask you, Manny, how many operators of all the people you know, city, state, nationwide, how many people do you know that run a bar, run a club, that don't have cameras? Honest opinion. Honest answer.
I think
that you know of.
That don't?
Yep.
I think it's probably today a 70-30 split. 70 do have cameras, 30% don't.
I only know that I've worked with 3 operators that do not have them. And I've worked with thousands of people. 3. And each one of them, their thought is some stuff got captured on video that hurt us in a lawsuit. And F it. We pulled them down. Now we don't have that.
Well, let's talk about the motivation of why we install cameras. And I'm guessing that most operators do not install cameras primarily for security reasons.
No.
Their primary motivation for installing a camera is theft.
Loss prevention. Catching bartenders, catching tips, catching cookies.
Catching cookies. I have some great video of cookie theft.
If you have it, by the way, if you have it, can you attach it? We'll see if we can format it and get it.
I don't know. I think I might have to blur the face. I don't know.
Nah. Did he steal the cookie? Yes or no?
That's great.
There's no crime.
Can I just
tell the story.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but as an operator, I think all security guards, people have been in this business for a while, we become very apt to reading body language. And I think, in my experience, has been that you could probably look across a room and you can see 2 people having a conversation, and just by their body language, you can have some sort of sense of what that conversation's about. And so that works with your guests, but it also works with your employees. I can also, I mean, from a hostess using a cell phone at the host stand to a bartender's movements, you get really good at spotting people's body language. And so I just happened to be walking by the cameras and looking at the monitoring system and watching this individual who I could tell something was up and he was about to steal a cookie. And sure enough, he stole the cookie out of the cookie jar. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. And it was reason enough. He wasn't that great of an employee anyway, but we ended up letting him go. It's a kind of a comical story.
Well, let me ask you, in that area, and I remember this, and that was at that restaurant I just mentioned, Bondi.
All right.
Sorry, but the venue's no longer open. But it was funny. Manny called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to send you this video. Look at that." And his voice was almost, "Is that what I think it is? Tell me what you think, and then call me back." And it was pretty obvious. The guy walked up, looked around, look back. All of a sudden, he reaches in the cookie jar and takes a cookie and looks around, takes a bite, looks around.
No, I was he cupped the cookie in his palm because he was
He
being
palmed
slept.
the cookie.
He palmed the cookie, and then we caught, as he was walking into the kitchen, we caught the actual consumption of the cookie.
Felony cookie theft.
Yeah.
But it goes back to your point. Most operator now at that time as a GM, you didn't install that camera to catch cookie theft. Kind of a backside is you get to watch the register, the tips, the payment, the credit cards, and the cookie jar.
I mean, the truth is that there's a lot of opportunity for people to steal within a restaurant. I mean, if you're not on top of it, it's probably happening. So again, going back, the motivation primarily is loss prevention, making sure that people aren't stealing. In fact, the mere fact that you've had a camera installation, I guarantee you, is going to change the way that your employees behave and act. They're going to think twice about.
How do you feel about this? Once a week, once a month, when you have the time, pull the employees together for an employee meeting. We both agree that's important. So you have a 30-minute employee meeting maybe once a month. At that meeting, devote 5 minutes, and it takes a little work on an operator's standpoint to pull some video of behavior caught on the video by the employees. Not to discipline anyone, maybe to show something great, but also to show, hey, look, that's what we talked about. We just can't do this. We can't all congregate by the well. Look at the other look at the other cameras. You see these 12 tables not being served? Why are we all here by the well? If it's a matter of firing someone and you let go a bartender because they were skimming, it's okay to show the employees. You can do that. What do you think about that?
I've always made the statement that video is a great training tool if it's used properly and for good and for bad, because you can catch behavior that's really good and somebody that does exceptional work, and you can demonstrate what that looks like. You can also find behavior that you want to improve and coach somebody through the process of, something as simple as techniques on bussing a table, interactions with the guest as you move through a crowded room, all sorts of things. And so cameras can be very, very valuable in improving the level of service with your staff. So it's not just always catching the bad things. You can always catch some great things. And that's what I really like about cameras is they're a great coaching tool, because oftentimes when people live through a situation or they go through the motions, they're not really cognizant of what they've done. And you can explain to them what they've done, and they might think, well, no, I didn't do that. Well, yeah, you did. Why don't we come back? Let's take a look at the video, and I'll show you where you did X, Y, and Z. I would like you to do A, B, and C.
Correct. And your answer does not surprise me one bit. And I think you asked that first question because as an operator, your first thought is loss prevention, watching my employees. Because trusting employees is very hard. Once you find them and they're established, it's not that hard. But even then, you still worry that things may be done wrong or might go wrong. My first inkling of cameras when I got into this business was to catch all the good stuff our guards do. And yeah, if it does catch the bad stuff, it catches the bad stuff, but we live with it. And my point is we can do loss prevention, we can catch theft, we can catch all that stuff from our employees. But my view is we want to catch when our guards break up a fight. It has nothing to do with loss prevention. When our guards break up a fight, they did it right. They broke it up, separated them, got parties out, one party out, two parties out. We catch the screaming, the yelling, the cussing, the pushing of our guards, and our guards didn't retaliate. It gets them up the street. Shortly later, the other party is down the street, and we did it right. Yeah, 1 in 25 times. Think of it, listeners. How many times do you really have a bad problem that goes sideways when you're walking someone out? You do it, 3 times a night, maybe 10 times a week, and it doesn't go sideways, but you catch it on video. Those are all positive, good things you caught on video. That one time it does go sideways, you get sued, man, that can save you because you have so many positive ones. Yeah, you do have that one, and it did catch.
And I think that for operators who are afraid of cameras because they don't want to catch that moment where they do something wrong, my question would be then, if you don't have that confidence in your team, there's something else wrong.
Yeah.
And rather than the cameras being the issue, I think the issue might lie in your policy, your procedure, how you operate,
Hiring,
the training.
Yeah.
So the notion or the idea that I don't like cameras because it's a liability to me, well, then I think there's probably a bigger issue, an underlying issue that you need to look at. Because if you are doing things right, and if you are, if you do have a good system in place and you do have a good team, you should be pretty confident that you're not going to be catching so many negative things.
In our podcast regarding liabilities and the life of a lawsuit, how it has to happen and what things have to line up. Imagine your guys are walking a guy out, your guards are walking a guy out. They do trip over a piece of torn carpet that's been held down with duct tape for years. They fall. The victim breaks his elbow. It's an accident. It happened. But you grabbed him right, you separated him right, you walked him out right, you had a manager, you had guards, you have policies, procedures, training, you documented it. Everything was done as best you could. Nothing could be better, and unfortunately a mistake happened. He sues you. You can't deny he got hurt by your guys. What did cameras change? Yes, it caught your guys walking him out, and he tripped on the carpet, and you all fell. He broke his elbow. What cameras will show is that you didn't do anything egregious, because he's going to claim, his attorneys will claim,
push me.
You pushed him, you threw him down, you forcefully fell on him on purpose. But the cameras will clearly catch the fall. Yep, oops, accidents happen. Own it, move on, settle, fight it. But it also shows your guys did everything right to prevent further injury to this guy. It really bothers me when operators tell me, and we have a client, longtime client that doesn't use cameras, I'm not going to mention their name, because you catch so much good, it far outweighs the bad incident that's caught.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously both proponents of cameras because we believe in the training process and having the right systems in place. So, you mitigate any sort of chance of something negative happening. It will happen, and things do happen, but it's I think it's better to have it on film. Let's talk about the amount of cameras you should have, Robert.
Many.
So you're the proponent as many as you can.
Yeah. If you think you have enough, you don't. So just say that to yourself. If I think I have enough, yeah, I'm fine. No, you're not. If you have 10, you need 15. If you have 15, you need 20.
Because in the loss prevention side of things, especially if you don't have cameras that tilt or zoom or
pan tilt zooms, infrared, nighttime.
If you have static cameras in a static position, your staff is going to learn where those positions are.
How many?
And so they'll be able to kind of skirt around.
How many of you have seen your bartenders when they're behind the bar and the policy and the owner says, okay, don't drink on duty. And they look around, they look left, they look right, and they duck down behind the top of the POS register screen because they know the camera can't pick anything up there, and that's where they do their shot.
I actually saw that I was walking through the mall, and there's a restaurant there at the Fashion Valley Mall in San Diego, and it was a Sunday morning, like 11 o'clock. And again, noticing body language, I saw like 3 or 4 bartenders behind the bar, and they all give the pivot of the head, the swivel back and forth, like scoping out the landscape. Simultaneously, all 4 or 5 bartenders squat behind the bar, fire back the shot, and then everybody like scatters like cockroaches in different directions like nothing happened. And that was such an obvious display of...
And some of that is caught on video.
Oh, some of it is.
But they just are skirting that issue. So on numbers, I really believe you can't have enough cameras ever. I worked with a venue a while ago. Her venue is down in the south part of San Diego, and it's literally less than 1,000 square foot. Her bar is really small. One pool table. There's not enough room for the sticks on one wall. No dance floor. It's a small bar. It's a neighborhood bar in the south part of San Diego. She's got over 36 cameras. She's got 3 different DVRs running cameras from her street, her door, her alley, her back door, her floor. Every inch of that floor and bar is covered. Now, I'll be honest, she's had some problems at her bar, and she's realized the more I can catch on video showing we had no knowledge, we had no idea this was brewing, we had nothing was there to give us signs that this was going to go off, we're better and covered. Yeah, it did cover a stabbing that was caught in the alley. But that's going to happen. But inside her bar, I'm amazed. She's got over 36 cameras.
How many square feet is it?
Less than 1,000. Pretty small.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
36 cameras. Let's talk about, we talked about the amount of cameras. Where can you not put cameras?
Well, there's really only one spot. Some of this stuff is urban legend. First off, I would bet you some of the listeners think, and please find the law if you want, and I always use the term in when I train, the phrase when I train is, have you ever heard of a paparazzi being arrested for filming her camera shots?
No, but I've seen celebrities call them names and hit the camera out of their hands.
That's right.
Yeah.
But none of them have been arrested unless they're doing something that is illegal. So when you see those shots of the wedding from the helicopter, LeBron James got married here last August, I think it was, in San Diego, in Del Mar, and there were about 5 helicopters down from LA, and they were all off the coast filming, trying to get pictures of this wedding ceremony. It's not illegal. They're in a public place. They have a right to be there, and you can shoot. Well, your bar is considered private property, public access. Your sidewalk is public access, public property. Your patio, private property, public access. Anyone that wants to pull out a camera and shoot pictures can do it. You want to shoot video, do it. The only place it's illegal, not your kitchen, not your bar, not your office, not your hallway, is in the bathroom where a person has a reasonable expectation of privacy. So if they're in the bathroom, you can't have cameras there. You can't film in there, and you can't do anything with that. If a friend is making a joke and filming his friend, no, it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an owner installing cameras. You don't need cameras in the bathroom. If you've got bathroom issues, get an attendant. Have quicker or sooner bar checks or bathroom checks by your bouncers.
Well, we saw that video coming out of South Africa, the last case that we talked about, where it was actually video from the bathroom, but it was basically just the sink area.
Right above the bar, or right above the door. The camera was trained down on part of the sink and the entry to the doorway. We're not in the United States there. It's South Africa. So they may have different rules regarding expectation of privacy. However, I think even here in the United States, it may be a good argument that, for example, in gentlemen's clubs nationwide, in the dressing room for strippers, there are cameras. The male bouncer, the male manager, or male employees will walk freely through that door where the women are getting undressed, in various states of undressed, or sometimes totally nude. And there's no problem. There's no expectation of privacy there because these are entertainers who openly change in that area, and men have to go in there. It's almost like a fashion show in the back where men will come and go while women are changing clothes. However, there's a door on the back, and that goes into the bathroom. There are no cameras in that bathroom. So reasonable expectation of privacy.
Is there differences from city to city, state to state, or federally? Or is it blanketed all by the same?
Blanketed all by federal law regarding taping and privacy rights. Okay. Now, I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. If you want to look it up, look it up. But I've taught this enough.
I would also think that with some nightclubs, I know some nightclubs utilize a common wash area, sink area, which I would imagine would be okay to film. Again,
no expectation of privacy where your stall has a door, floor to ceiling. You're behind the stall doing what you need to do. When you come out, you're in that common sink area shared by men, women, janitors, DJs, whoever goes in there. There's no reasonable expectation of privacy.
DJs in the bathroom.
Imagine that.
They probably got somebody's got DJs.
Especially those platypus guys.
Oh, yeah. Planet Platypus, our friends.
So I would say put cameras everywhere except the bathroom. You don't need them. So.
All right. So I've installed cameras. Do I need to have somebody monitoring them 24/7?
It used to be that way. Again, the gentleman's club.
Old school Vegas
gentleman's club industry. Right. They had someone watching 30 different monitors with VCR tapes running each one. Not anymore. You can set it up. You get a DVR that is 8 ports, 16 ports, 32 ports. Now, typically all DVRs have 32 ports, and by a port, I mean a plug-in for the camera. Every DVR that is worth its weight will have the spot for 32 cameras. So if you want 40 cameras, you need 2 DVRs. You want 8, you need 1. But it just tapes. depending on how you have the system set up, record on movement, record during these hours, record in black and white, record at a faster bit rate, record slower. That determines how long your storage will be. So if you turn your camera on Monday at 8 a.m. and you say record, it's going to record until it has the storage capacity filled, and then it starts taping over. Typically, nowadays, it's usually 30 days of storage time for these cameras. That's the good, better DVRs that are out there. So why do you need someone watching it? If you had a fight on, if today is Friday, which it is, Friday the 13th, but we realized that on Friday 2 weeks ago, on January 29th, we had a fight, we got plenty of time to go back and pull it up. We don't need someone to watch it. The only time, let me caveat this, the only time you really do need someone to monitor the cameras is when you have a pan, tilt, zoom camera and you've got someone with a joystick or the 4 arrows on your computer moving a camera right, left, up, down, zooming in, zooming out. That's about the only time you need that, and that's rare unless you want to do it on a Friday or Saturday. You want to capture certain things. You have hotspots, but I've only seen it with larger venues that want to really capture some specialized stuff.
Well, I think the pan, tilt, zoom type cameras for larger venues is a good idea because sometimes as a manager you have a little hairs that stick up in the back of your neck and you say, I think something may go on here, or I think something's happening here. So it's helpful to have those sorts of cameras to zoom in and get a better vantage point.
And here's another
of
cool
the
thing.
activity, because going back to Bondi, which is
body language, gut feelings.
I would. And this actually, I think, actually happened with another employee to where I was concerned about his behavior on an off-duty night. He wasn't working, and I wanted to demonstrate the way he was behaving the following day. And so I was able to get some pretty good footage of his behavior at the bar. And it wasn't so egregious to where it was a fireable offense, but I wanted to make it known that, hey, you better tighten it up.
When you're off duty,
you
can't do that.
You're still representative of the company and you're still accountable.
Same thing. Here's an operator who's at home. Now, nearly all technology for cameras now, you can get the software to view it on your smartphone or Android at home from your computer. So it's a Thursday night. It's the nightclub and bar show coming up in March. You're in Vegas. You're in your hotel. You can log in with your smartphone, and if you've got a pan, tilt, zoom camera that is really set up to view 80% of your venue, you can now be in Vegas. And you know what? Look at the bartenders. Are they doing what they're doing? Let me switch to the pan, tilt, zoom. Now on your phone, you can zoom in to what they are doing instead of using the static camera that's above the bar, to the side of the bar, or in the kitchen or whatever, to really see what's going on. On a security standpoint, it's great. And I've seen it used from a liability protection standpoint when a manager knows his guys are going to walk someone out. I talked earlier, and I think I said I talked about the retweet of when there's no hurry, don't hurry. A manager was smart enough to catch on that we're going to ask these guys to leave. He went into the office, got on the pan, tilt, zoom, and zoomed in on the table. He panned out, caught his 4 guards walking up, talking to the guys, caught everything in great detail, including the hands-on walkout. It was all captured on the static video, but he also captured it just like you see the TV security cameras where they follow a guy down the street.
You have better play-by-play.
Yeah, and it's great. The pan, tilt, zooms are an addition, but it's really good, and you won't always need them, but when you need it, you love to have them.
So the tough part, too, is where you actually monitor the film. So a lot of times the obvious place is to set it up in the office. I've also seen setups to where the DJs are the ones accessing. So if it's a large nightclub, they're basically operating music and they're your secondary video observation employee, to where they'll be mic'd with the camera and say, hey, can you zoom in on section 4 of the club and monitor this for me, please?
And you're thinking out of the box, and you're thinking, let's get everyone else involved to keep the place safe. The other thing about, we mentioned the DVR and 8 ports, 16 ports, 32. Okay, if you think you only need 10 cameras, get that 32 port DVR. Put your 10 cameras in there. A week later, a year later, add 5 more cameras. But besides looking at the DVR with 32 ports, look at the type of cameras you're getting. If your bar is low lit, if you have strobes, you have motion lights and all the activity going on at a dance club with a DJ, you're going to need certain types of cameras that can filter that type of ambient light out. If you've ever seen a black and white video of a dance floor in a large club, it's like lightning, looking at lightning. You can't really detail a lot of stuff, glean a lot of details out of that. High-end infrared cameras, low-end infrared cameras will screen all that lighting out, and you just get the people and the movement.
Yeah, so you really need a little bit of, well, not a little bit, but you need some expert advice when you install these to make sure you're getting the best image possible.
Well, and your first question is something I ask people when they say, hey, Bob, I'm thinking about cameras. I'm thinking about an ID scanner. I'm thinking about guards. I say, what do you want them to do? So what do you want your cameras to do? Well, at the door, I want to make sure my door guard is doing his job. Okay, let's turn it around. We know your door guard's checking IDs. You want to make sure he's screening the ID, not letting someone in over-intoxicated, really looking at that ID, not taking money, not doing things that are wrong. You want to catch the walkouts when they walk guys out and the guys are in people's face. I suggest always a color camera there. Get as much detail as you can. It's a static. You put it at a 5-foot radius. You don't need to see the whole street. You need to see your door. And you can capture what you need to capture, and it's in color.
So what are the hot spots? So you got the door, obviously.
The
front door is a hot spot.
Correct. And 2 or 3 spots around that front door to have cameras is so important. A patio, a rear patio, rear door, a side patio, smoking areas.
I always think bathroom areas are always a area of, like, the entryways to bathrooms.
Well, and
especially if you have your men and women's in the same hallway.
Correct. And the build out on restaurants, they never seem to ask security experts or consultants what your opinion is. But one of your older venues, Henry's Pub, had the perfect setup for a restroom. On one side of the building was the men's, and on the total opposite end of the building was the females. And that gives a really unique perspective where the guys don't have to hang out by the women's bathroom when they don't have to go to the bathroom. When you got them together and they're across the hall from each other and there's a mutual hallway, you always get static in that hallway. Guys groping girls, accidentally groping them, on purpose groping them, hitting on them,
to come out.
Waiting for them to come out.
Girls
the vultures,
not wanting to wait in line, and they jump into the men's bathroom.
Girls going into the men's. It's a hassle. But because it's a hassle, you're going to have other problems that arise. That's where you need a camera. Other hot spots, obviously, along the bar, the well, dance floor, depending on any entertainment you have. That's why when you talk about, oh, I've got 8 cameras, I'm good. No, double that, triple that.
I also like, all exits, back exits, like rear entry points, and then entry points in and out of places that are not open to the public, so like kitchen doors.
Correct. One other area that I've only got a couple clients that do this, and I love the idea because you really get a full total picture. This is a rear door where all the employees come in and leave, and it's a rear parking lot where guests park and they walk around to the front of the bar. They have a camera all the way across the other side of the parking lot that catches the entire rear side of the building. Now what that does, they've got another camera right above the door. You get to see who comes in, who goes out. But that rear far distance, and I mean by distance away from the back of the building, I'm probably 60 to 80 feet away. So you're not getting the best detail of colors and size and who it is, but you can see and then match that farther away video with your close video of the door and the exits, but you get a real good story of what went on in that parking lot or at that rear exit with a larger view from across
with multiple camera angles, you're able to assemble that story a lot better. You know, another thing that I think that owners or operators miss out on is they seem to focus on the loss prevention side. They seem to focus cameras on the bar area as an area for loss. If you have a kitchen,
the idea is that you look at these places, and when you're a manager, you go look and just look for things that you wouldn't normally look for, and you'll be surprised that if you have the cameras there, you're going to catch it, and you can stop it from blowing up or becoming something worse behavior or worse issues.
I think another thing with video cameras is the downside is once you get good at spotting the behavior and you get good at the surveillance, you'll end up finding a lot of things you didn't want to find. And so it can kind of be a curse as well. especially if you're really intuitive to.
How do you feel? Let me ask you this. How do you feel about giving the access to your cameras to the World Wide Web, the police, anybody else? And I'm talking about a wireless router for a couple of cameras. Maybe all your cameras are wireless. You can have them hardwired. That's obviously a more stable system. You can have them wireless with a wireless router that sends an internet signal to your cameras. But I'm talking about giving as an operator, as a general manager, would you want to give access to your front door, rear door, parking lot to the police? Or just put it on the internet, broadcast it live. Would you do that?
As an operator, I probably would give access to external cameras to the police department, but I wouldn't put it up for public consumption. I know that there was a club back in the days, Bitter End here in San Diego, and they did have a camera that pointed to their front door in the street, and you could actually go through their website and link in, which was, I guess, kind of novel and neat, but
way ahead of its time because.
But for internal shots, I wouldn't feel comfortable, and there's a couple reasons. One, just for privacy, because not everybody wants to be seen when they're in a bar. Some people don't want people to know they're in a bar, and I would want to kind of conceal that privacy for my clients. Second of all, sometimes, especially for clubs who charge cover charge, you don't want that inside shot because there's that what's inside mystery, which would encourage somebody to pay a cover charge. So
one of the things I want to make sure we leave our listeners with is that using this IP address for the police can really be a great PR move for you. As a former police officer, we had businesses that would come and say, hey, whether it was Greyhound bus, taxi cab companies, certain convenience stores, they would want the police to have access. So just in case the police were sitting at a computer in their office or they had access on their computer in their car, they could pull up the internet protocol, the IP address, and take a look at what was going on. It's no different than what you see on TV when they show the weather service showing the beach cam, the pier cam, the building cam, high atop mount, so-and-so. I recommend your front door camera. You notify your police, invite them to come in and, quote-unquote, help you with the right place to put cameras. You can put them anywhere you want. What you're doing is throwing them a bone as being a part of making your community safer, making your bar safer. If the police tell you, I recommend you put cameras here, do it or not. It's just a recommendation. They don't really care. They're just trying to help you. But at the end of the day, give them the IP address for your front door camera. You're doing 99.9% right.
Or an external street shot.
An external street shot. Either one, and I really believe in it because what you're done automatically is told the police, we got nothing to hide. Here, take a look. Use it when you want to look. You want to come down and view it? Great. You want to look at it in your office? Great. Trust me, folks. Trust me. The cops have more important things to do than sit around and watch your front door. But the message has been sent that you're there to help. They'll lose that IP address.
They're going to consider it a partnership and be able to see you in a different light rather than just a nightclub operator. This is somebody who's part of the community.
And if you're a smart operator, whether you've had trouble or not, you get your camera system. You've got some wireless ones. You've got plenty around the building. You've got plenty inside. You've got all the areas covered with low light, infrared, pan tilt zoom, whatever you do. Have a press release. Invite the media. Invite the police and give the IP address. And then all of a sudden you're interviewed on camera in your city about why you're giving your camera access to the police. Why? Because you want to partner with them. You want a community that's safe. You want a city. You want a street. You want a bar that's safe. And the police are your partners. Even if you think they're out to get you, you got to treat them as your partner. And by giving this, it really sends a good message.
That's a really good idea, especially if you're a venue who has problematic areas surrounding your venue, back alleyways, side streets. If you can give the police a different vantage point on an area that's a problem area, you look like somebody who is there to help the community be safer. One more topic before we close out today's show, Robert, is once you catch an incident on video, what's your recommendations for how many camera angles, how long should you save this material, what's the standard protocol?
Well, and let's think about it. What do we want to save? Do we want to save the turn away at the door for dress code? Is that something? I don't think so. Do we want to save the bartender stealing $10? You may want that if you want them arrested, or you fire them and you're in a state where they go after the labor commission because they say they were wrongfully terminated. You may want to keep that video. But normally you don't keep that stuff. What we're worried about is anything that could, and I use this phrase a lot, anything that could lead to litigation. I mean, the violent fights, the non-violent fights, the pushing, shoving matches that go to the ground that you got to separate people. Anytime there's an injury, save those type of videos. So it's a Friday night, you get a pushing, shoving match, a guy goes to the ground, the police come to help break it up. One guy goes to jail, one doesn't go to jail, whatever. Your guards rally up, they write incident reports, your manager proofs them, reads them, files them away. That night, the next morning, the next day, within a couple of days, that manager needs to have a clear head, go back to those incident reports, then go back to the camera and trace from the incident ending backwards to when it began and save that video. Cut it, save, and put it in the file on the computer so it's saved. I would recommend that, even with some things that seem benign and they're not going to go anywhere, because it gives you proof that you do it right. For example, cutting someone off that you have to walk out. Chances are they're never going to sue you, and it's only about a 40-second clip. But now you can save them for these employees. You can save them for the door guys turning people away. You can save them to use as a double-edged sword to help you, that we do it. We have training, we have policies, and here's video proof. Should you be in front of a jury to show, you're not just saying you do it, you got proof that you do it. Is it extra work to save those smaller things? Yeah, but I think the value of saving that is extremely important.
On the note of like a major incident, and I'm just going off of my experience, would find the angles or the cameras that recorded the activity. I would try to record as much before and after, or I would save that clip. I wouldn't ever cut or edit it because I never wanted the inclination or the thought that might be I was cutting something out that I didn't want someone else to see. So I kept from beginning to
the
end
raw footage.
The raw footage intact. I would save that to a desktop computer, and then I would save that to a CD-ROM or an outside medium just in case. And then that would be kept with the actual incident report as part of the report. So you're basically backing up your backup just to make sure that you have everything in place. That would be my thoughts.
One other point about that. We have to assume something here. Let's assume the police are coming. You escorted a guy out for fighting. He hit a guy over the head with a bottle. That's our scenario. The victim is in the ambulance being taken care of. The police are finally at your venue. They're starting to do interviews. Somebody better have access to the damn cameras. I'm telling you, as a former cop, having talked to hundreds of cops around the country, they immediately think you're lying and you did something wrong if no one in that building has access to your cameras.
Because what Robert's talking about is not managers, but owners will often block out access to management for whatever reason.
They'll say, hey, well, call me if they need access. Well, you're in Italy. You're in Colorado skiing. How can you be here in LA or San Diego? And all of a sudden there's a 3-hour delay. The cops don't have 3 hours. They want to see the video because your suspect, maybe he got away and now they're on a hot broadcast. And you say, well, I don't have access. Are you kidding me? You just had a stabbing and you don't have access? They automatically assume you're lying. Somebody's got to have access every time you're open, period. And if you're not doing it, it sure looks like you're trying to hide something. If you don't trust your employees, fire them and get new employees that you can trust. But if the cops come in and want it, here in San Diego, I saw the cops come into a bar after a bar fight. The bar had many problems. This just was the cap. This was the cherry on the top. They went ahead and took the whole DVR. They literally unscrewed it. They had their sergeant, they had their field lieutenant there, and they said, take it. Because we, the cops, not me, I wasn't a part of that team, but the cops felt that if they left that DVR there, the information would disappear or that camera wasn't working. They took the whole DVR. Had they had someone there to access it, they could have showed them, here are the view. If you did something wrong, own it. Oops. If you didn't, you better have access to it.
Yeah, so that's a big consideration, making sure that management and your team have access to the footage. If you're not allowing that, then I think there's probably a bigger problem of trust within your management. So something to think about. Robert, we're already at about an hour here with the podcast. I want to take a short break. Did you have anything you wanted to add before we close out
No, we're
the
good.
show?
We're good.
Again, always a lot to talk about. Maybe we'll come back at another show and touch on this subject again. But we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll make a couple announcements, and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Robert, a couple of quick announcements before we close out today's show. We got California PSO training in LA at Akbar on Sunset. We'll be there Monday. What are our dates?
The 16th, 17th, and 18th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at Akbar, Sunset and Fountain.
And
Avenue.
the Akbar has been great partners with us. Jeff Wiley and his team have welcomed us into their venue and allowed us to use their facility to do the training, and we really do appreciate that, Jeff. So we'll be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We get back here in San Diego.
Quickly thank NEHA, the Northeast Hospitality Association, for helping us get the word out up there in LA. Really
Elizabeth Peters
Yeah.
and her group have been very supportive of our program, and they see the value in the training. For the listeners nationally who are not familiar with the PSO, quickly, Robert, can you explain the PSO program?
2011, the state of California became the first state to mandate all in-house guards, and for our world, our bars and clubs, that's a bouncer, an in-house guard, be licensed. The license is two parts. Part one is a registration with the state of California. Part two is 16 hours of training, and it's not generic training like some of you listeners have in your states for security guards. It's job-specific training.
And part three, background checks.
And, well, the registration is actually two parts, registration with the state and a background check, and then the other part is the training.
And California is the first state to have a program like this?
All states had licensing of security guards, but California became the first in 11 to do it just for the specialty guards, loss prevention, bouncers, certain school guards. So California became the first state there.
So those were for in-house, those who have direct contact with the public.
Wear a distinctive uniform. New York will be doing the same thing.
Hawaii just passed.
New York is rewriting their security guard licensing stuff. Louisiana has theirs going on. It's a little bit different, but they have it too. This is something going to go nationwide, folks. I've been saying it for years. Every state will have their own license regarding bouncing in a bar or club.
And then also with the training, the PSO that we do, we also have online training that we also offer, which we have the PSO program in place. We have our national host program.
When you say online, the first thing I think of is all of the crappy online training programs that are out there for driver's education, ticket fixing, any of that stuff. That's not what we do, folks. Ours is not a click and move.
If you've ever gone through like a fix-it ticket or a driving school online, and if you've gone through that experience, you can probably relate to how hokey the actual online learning experience is. This is very different. It's video-based. It's quiz-based. It's high production quality. So we're very proud of our program. And if you want to get that training online, we encourage you to visit our website, nightclubsecurity.com, and check us out. So announced Akbar, LA. We got handcuffing class coming back here.
A week from yesterday on the 19th, we'll be here back at the Gaslamp Marriott doing a handcuffing certification. State of California has no training requirement for handcuffs. You can just go buy them and start using them. But handcuffs can be dangerous. They're one of the greatest tools you could get as an in-house guard or bouncer, and they're great. You shouldn't be afraid of them. But get the training so you understand the legal ramifications, the medical ramifications, and what to do when you have them.
Because when improperly used, it's easy to hurt someone, and you open yourself up to some liability on that end. So if you do use handcuffs, look for a handcuffing certification. We do it. You can always call us and ask us about what we can offer for you. What else, Robert?
We're into January. We'll probably be in Pike Barber from HIA Insurance. He's partnered with us to give some discounts for our training programs. He set up a couple of sessions. We'll probably be in New York second or third week of January. New venue opening up out of Europe. They're coming into the United States and doing their grand opening in New York. We'll be doing their training. We're looking at another event put on by HIA in late January or February. We don't know the dates yet, down south of Miami. And possibly one more that we're putting on the books this week will be in D.C. the last week of December, probably the 27th and 28th in Washington, D.C.
And hopefully we'll be up in Spokane, Washington in January.
Yeah, we're looking at inking a deal with
the old Roadhouse.
Yeah, in Spokane, Washington on the 18th and 19th.
Let's see. Oh, I know what else I wanted to mention. So it being the end of the year with the holiday parties coming up, just everybody be safe. Managers, just a little tip. Don't assume that your employees are not going to get too drunk at the holiday party. So make sure you're giving a heads up to keep everybody safe. We also have some friends over at HRI Ideas. That's hrideas.com. Daisy Bach there has some really good suggestions on the HR side of things when it comes to holiday parties, so you might want to check her out. And I think that's about it.
That's it, buddy.
So find us on Facebook, subscribe to our podcast, search for Nightclub Security. What else?
Twitter at Bouncer Coach.
And until next time, we'll see you soon. My name is Manny Marquez.
I'm Robert Smith.
Be safe.